So yeah, let's get started. Thank you for being a part of the business festival and coming along today. We have our fantastic speaker, Kate from Synectics Solutions, and I'll pass over to you, Kate. Thank you.
No problems. It seems like the light has just decided that I shut the blinds in front of this, but it's still trying to get through apparently. So I feel like I'm like almost caged on my face. It's weird. Anyway, hopefully I've now really brought it to your attention, and that's all you're going to see for the rest of the time. And I probably could have got away with it. I am so pleased to be here with you guys this morning, and anybody who then ends up on the replay as well. Hi to you. Yeah, I have to say, love the business festival idea that the Chamber do, and I'm really looking forward to actually watching the replay of a couple that happened yesterday. I didn't get to watch them all yesterday, unfortunately, live when they were happening. But if you, just a little plug for the Chamber, if you go onto the Chamber website, under webinars, I'm pretty sure, Lucy will tell me if it's not, and then under Business Festival, there's a load that were from yesterday are all available, including the CEO of ASOS, who apparently, I saw Laura earlier on this, said he was fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to going and hearing from him, because it's such a well-known brand, isn't it? And hilariously, Laura was saying that when she was like doing part of the interview with him, her doorbell went and he said, "Oh, go get it." And when she went and got it, she came back laughing because at the doorbell was an ASOS package. Like, you couldn't write it. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's enough about that. So I'm going to be, I've got a few thanks actually to say first, because there are people probably in the Synectics room. We've been live streaming it. We turned in our office one of our meeting rooms into a bit more of like a cinema style. There's popcorn, there's drinks and everything in there. And there, so there might be some of my guys sitting in there right now. Maybe one of them is Tash, who had to help me. I'm a talker. I'm not great at putting words together onto paper. But Tash helped me and came up with this amazing title of our Evolution of Culture whilst preserving the core. So a huge thank you to her as well. So let me just share my screen, which is one I made earlier kind of thing, and it works brilliant. If you've got any questions for me during it, feel free to use the hand button. I'm quite happy to be interrupted as I'm doing this. Use the chat box. Absolutely fine, or just shout out if you really want to. That's absolutely fine by me as well. I'm hoping that this will give you, actually that's probably on the next slide to be honest, what we're gonna, oh no, I've gone for a different way of doing it. So yeah, so I thought what I'd start with is give you a little bit more about Synectics really, and a little bit more about me, so you know who's talking to you today. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Kate Beardmore, and I am the Vice Chair and People and Client Success Director at Synectics Solutions. Synectics, we've got about 350 staff. We're based in Burslem. We are 30 years old next February. So we are planning, we were not been able to do our company days the last couple of years. So you can bet that the company day we are planning next February, and it's our 30th birthday party. It is going to be epic. And I'm so excited for the plans that are afoot that a lot of people in that Synectics box won't know about yet. We are a family business. It was my mum and dad who set the company up. I am the second generation coming through. I'm the eldest of the 4 children. We are all somehow now working in one of the businesses, which I will show you in a minute. A lot of people ask us what we do. The best way I've come to describe it, probably our techie people would hate me for just describing it like this, but we are an innovative company who develops software as a service, working, we've got over 100 and I think it might be 50 clients now. We're ranging from tier 1 banks, insurance companies, and also we work with a very huge amount with the public sector, and mainly with the Cabinet Office as well. So what we do is extremely important and helps detect sort of, you know, one of our things is looking for fraud and financial crime. So we have a huge, you know, really important at what we do. But one of our key things that we're also known for is our culture and how we do it. So it's not just what we do and why we're doing what we're doing, but actually how we do it. And hopefully I'm going to go through a little bit of that today, because we are 30 years and obviously that culture has had to evolve from when mum and dad set it up. Part of our sort of, my maiden name is Shanahan, so part of the Shanahan family group, as we call it. We've got Summit Hospitality. My mum then set up the Hub Foundation. So that's looking after providing activities and food for free during the school holidays. And we've just done a record summer. It's been incredible, and I really haven't got the stats at hand to share with you. My parents don't, most parents retire and take their money and go on a really nice world cruise. Mine buy a football club, as you do. But yes, we have Port Vale Football Club within the family now as well. And just a personal one for me, in November, I do a lot of work with the Chamber. And in November, I'll become the president of Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce as well. So it's something that's really, really close to my heart, really keen on promoting Staffordshire. Really proud that we're part of Staffordshire. And I just think Staffordshire's ace, and that the people who tend to put Staffordshire down the most are the people who live in Staffordshire. So I really want to help spread the good news about where we're from. So that's a little bit more about Synectics and me. So I'm going to go through now about some of the influences that we've used over the years. So this is kind of the basis of the presentation, and you'll see all of them will get covered. Now, can anybody, here's your first challenge of the day, and I do appreciate that it's only just past 9:15, but does anybody know who this man is on the screen? Use the chat box or shout the name out if you happen to know who this wonderful guy is. Didn't think you'd be doing interactions this. You thought you'd be just sitting there. You can hide behind the cameras and not think that I'd, get you involved. Anybody? Anyone to give it a go? It's Mike's asking, is it an old picture of my dad? Oh, I think he would love you forever, Mike, for saying that. But no, my dad had some amazing sayings, actually. But no, that was not my dad. He's actually a guy called Jim Collins. So anybody who's probably read things like Good to Great, he's absolutely, he's an American. I describe him as a business guru god, and you'll see a couple of his frameworks that we use quite a huge amount that we use within Synectics. So I will go through a little bit more about him. We've also taken inspiration from Zappos, and I'll go through where that comes in. They are absolutely, they again, American seems to be a bit my theme today, but they are an American company who sell shoes of all things. So how does that dovetail into what I'm going to talk about today? We've got Netflix as well. They've got a book called the No Rules book, and it's brilliant. And we've taken inspiration from that. We've got some neuroscience in there. So a lovely lady from Hillary Scarlett. But she's actually, I've got a little video of her talking. So it's not going to be me talking the whole time today. We've got Jacob Morgan, an amazing organization, what he came up with, all about employee experience. And we do a lot of research as well. And so a lot of that, one of the places that we go to is a place called Gallup. And I'm going to show an article that they've done that we've really taken inspiration from. So we're going to start off with the wonderful Jim Collins, because so much of our stuff starts with Jim Collins. And I think the first thing for me when I was thinking about this, what I was going to talk to you guys today, is actually, we're talking about evolving a culture, and actually kind of need to know what our culture's like initially. So what we have done is taken a framework that Jim Collins has. And Jim Collins has done a huge amount. He's a researcher. He's an amazing researcher and goes really deep, looking at organizations. Why do some organizations succeed and why do some fail? And what are the key factors between the differences? And for some, you know, he was looking at organizations that were around at the same time, in the same market, had the same opportunity to succeed, yet some did, some didn't. And what was that difference? And then from there, he was able to come up with his theories and some frameworks of him saying. Now, one of his frameworks that he comes up with is called the one-page strategic plan. And he talks about, a lot of his work is about the power of the word and. So he has, on his one-page strategic plan, he has two elements to it. You've got to preserve the core, which I'm going to give you an explanation of, and you need to stimulate progress. So it's no good just having this really good organization with an amazing culture if it's not actually generating a profit, doing anything, being successful in that way. You need both. And again, in the same way, you're not going to be as successful as you possibly can if you're doing really, you know, if you're getting loads done, but your culture isn't sustainable as well. So this is the way it's all placed on the screens will make sense in about a minute's time. So his definition of preserving the core, I am going to read it, although I know that you guys can. A deeply held core ideology, which gives, and we've changed this to our company, but gives a company both a strong sense of identity and a thread of continuity that holds the organization together in the face of change. You're going to see that change is a theme that I've got through this presentation as well. And you need to stimulate progress. So to build a visionary company, we need to counterbalance the fixed core ideology with a relentless drive for progress. So while core ideology provides that continuity, stability, and cohesion, the drive for progress promotes the change, improvement, innovation, and renewal. So you can see how the two are so interlinked. One is trying to create change, and one is trying to really hold grounded throughout that change. So what he did is that he has a framework called the one-page strategic plan, which is all about preserving the core on this side, but also about that stimulating progress. So we do this, this is our third year of using this framework. And we have iterated on it year and year. And this is what we tend to do. We tend to take frameworks from other people and we do what we call synectify it and synecticize it. So it's all about making it adaptable. So you can have frameworks, but make them yours. If you need to change something, then change it. You know, as long as the essence of why it's there is still valid, then absolutely go change it. So that's what we've really done. And we found this so really, really helpful. And our business year is actually, I think it's because my mum had 4 kids and September is the start of a year for her for so many years. I was like the school year. So our business year runs from the 1st of September through to the 31st of August. And this is actually, for anybody in the Synectics room right now, this is a little preview of the one that's coming out, I think, today. But definitely being a bit more communicated on Thursday as well. So this is our brand new one for this year. It doesn't matter about the details, the specifics on here, that's specific to us, but it gives you that kind of feel. We have this up and around the place. And the idea being that everything that we do should be that anybody does in our organization can relate back to that page. It acts as a decision-making process. You know, we have so many opportunities that we could go and do. So we use this. Does it relate back? Does it relate back to our values? Does it relate back to our stimulating progress and the direction of travel that we're going in this particular year? Yeah, it's absolutely, we've loved it and found it really, really helpful. And then he has got more. So this is a flywheel. That's a Jim Collins one as well. Yeah, I could talk about Jim Collins for the whole thing, which I'm not going to do because there's other people that need to come in. The next one that actually I'm just going to pull in here is Zappos. So my story with Zappos is where I took over as HR director about 5 years ago, I think, something like that. And when I came in and we were talking about culture and everything like that, I remember somebody saying to me, "Oh, won't it be a shame that as you get bigger, you're going to lose your culture and you're going to lose that feel of you?" And it really, something hit really hard with me on it, because I was like, well, that's not what I want. And that's not how I think it should be. Like, surely I wanted to be the type of person that goes and prove that person wrong. Do you know what I mean? We can be, have a huge number of employees and still keep our culture. Because if we don't have the culture, if I'm honest, I don't want to work in it. So I was like, well, I don't want to become just a big organization, and with all that kind of, big organizations are great, but they can be slower. They can have a lot of bureaucracy, and we didn't want all of that. So I was like, right, I'm on a mission to prove that you can do it. Turns out, about a couple of weeks later, I cannot remember who I was speaking to, but I think I've both been talking about it, and this person said, have you heard of Zappos? Which I was like, no. And they said, you need to read about Zappos. And I read this book here, which is Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, who is the CEO of Zappos. And it changed. And it was like, yes, this is what I've been on about. And I didn't have to go out and prove that you could do it, because for me, Zappos had already done it. They've got over 1,000 employees. They have this most amazing culture. Fun being a real heart of it as well, but service being one of their absolute key things that they do. And I just fell in love. They have a thing called that all of their staff are Zapponians. I mean, it is a little bit cultish, but they are in America, so they get away with it, these things. But it also gave me that view of, oh, do you know what? We can go and do some of this. So and they have this thing that they do where when people have joined, they can have in the first, I think it's 3 months after they've joined, something like they at any point they can cash in $1,000 and just walk away, because their view is that it's better if people want to take that they just go do it. Because the cost of an employee staying who doesn't live to their values they view it as higher than their $1,000. So they have this offer. I mean, you have to get through such a recruitment process. Anyway, absolutely amazing. Anyway, again, I could talk about Zappos for a long time too. So what we really learning through the work of Jim Collins and of Zappos was this new way of doing things. And Jim Collins has a great phrase, which is to have freedom within a framework. And when we first heard it, it kind of took us a while for us to understand what it was really meaning. And then combine that. So we were really working at how we could use frameworks, how we could selectivize it, how it could come into the organization, because we really liked this idea of these frameworks. And giving autonomy to our staff and our leaders to make decisions, and it not all just go up to the top and become bottlenecks. So that we found this really, really fascinating. Then add on top of it that we came across the book No Rules, which is obviously from Netflix. Now, again, American company, they don't have the same employment laws that we do in the UK. However, that's absolutely fine, but we can take the essence of what they were saying, and again, synectivize it, which included UK laws, and come up with ways that we could do things. I mean, they are extreme. Their expenses policy is expensive framework is a 2-sentence, and it's basically the framework is that you spend money as though it was your own. And that is it. That's like the sentence that they have for their expenses policy. Absolutely incredible. And if you look at some of the UK companies, we've got pages and pages in one. Our expenses policy is a good couple of pages long. So it got you thinking. And again, 2 extremes, but there's a nice sweet spot in the middle. So the first one that we introduced was a framework called Dress for Your Day. And this was basically replacing our dress code policy. And the whole thing was that, do you know what? If your day involves being around clients, and those clients are very corporate, so we deal with obviously a lot of banks and insurance companies and financial services sort of sector, well, then you'd go in a suit. But if you're a developer and you're trying to solve a problem and you're trying to get, really need to delve deep, do you know what? Being in a suit might not get you into the right mindset for that kind of work. So if you need to be, and I'll really extremize it, if you need to be in shorts and a flip-flops and be that kind of feel like you're on Silicon Valley, kind of way of working, then fine, that's absolutely fine, because it's whatever you need to work for your day. That went down really well with the staff when we introduced that. So that kind of got us thinking of how our staff responded to that kind of change, and they in a really positive way. So the next one that we introduced earlier this year was our reward and recognition. Again, framework, not a policy. It's about, because policies tend to be viewed as very black and white. Whereas a framework gives more, we would say, sort of equity to people, which I'll come on to it in a little bit more detail. Yeah, we brought our rewarding recognition framework in, where our management team are really given the autonomy to do what they feel is right for their teams. So, we used to do, on our recognition side, we used to do big quarterly value awards where people nominated individuals for people who really encompassed our values and lived them. And you know what? For some people, more of our extrovert side, they didn't mind getting up in front of a stage in front of the whole organization. They were embarrassed a little bit about it, but in a nice way. For some of our more technical staff, developers and stuff like that, they just did not like it. And that was the feedback we were getting, was that, do you know what? Like that I'm being recognized, but not in that way. That doesn't work for me. And so that was a really interesting, I think, because I'm so extrovert as well, like to realize that there might be different ways that we need to do things. So then we changed it now that the different managers can do what's right for their teams. So we've had some people take their teams out and do the escape rooms. Some teams have gone and done crazy golf because that's what their team is really into. Some have done an afternoon tea. Loads of different things that people have been able to do. And again, that's gone down really, really well. With the pandemic, obviously one of the things that's really come out of the pandemic is what's the framework. We obviously now proven that people don't have to be in the office to do their jobs. And so we were getting a lot of questions as to what our stance was going to be. And we saw big companies like Twitter come out and say we're not going to have any offices and all sorts of things, which are going to be remote working completely. I do know of a lot of organizations that are now changing that stance, because while you can be more productive at home, there's a couple of articles later that I'll go through which show that there are benefits to being in an office. So I remember Susanna, in our learning and development team, we were brainstorming what we want to, because I love our dress for our day policy, framework. See, that's me still not quite into those new languages. So Susanna came in and was so delighted this one day, and she went, I've got it. And it's called the 4 W's framework, and it's work, where, and where works, which is a massive tongue twister sometimes, I have to say. And we're so pleased with it. And it's basically, again, giving autonomy to the managers with their teams for what works for them. So for me, when I was prepping for this kind of presentation, I need quiet. I need to not be distracted. I need to be away from people. I found that, and I need my good laptops and, set up. I need 2 screens. So I found it really helpful that I was at home when I did that, because I've got that kind of setup. Whereas if I'm doing planning and doing looking at the next couple of months, where am I going to be? What am I up to? What have I got to do? I find I work really well in a coffee shop when I'm doing that. So again, and again, for I keep picking the developers today. Sorry if there's any developers in the Synectics room. Like, you are just in my brain today. You know, if they've got a problem that they need to challenge themselves on, probably being in the office, looking at, you know, with our whiteboards and doing all of that, that's where they probably need to be. And we find that's a lot easier. Whereas, and a team meeting might be better in the office, so you get some of that social connection. Whereas if they're doing a particular piece of work, they've got a deadline, they really need to, you know, focus and concentrate, actually, probably better off at home doing that. So again, it's really quite nice that we're giving that autonomy back over to the management and the staff, really. And then the latest one that's we really just sort of the framework that we put in. I don't want people thinking that we've been doing this for years, by the way. This is like an evolution and really ramped up a lot over the last year, 2 years, but in particular the last year. So our talent conversation is replacing appraisals, and it's talking about where people are at, where do they want to be, and we've just done that exercise, and now we're coming into September. Everybody in the organisation should have now been done with the particular framework that we put in. And it's even the stuff that I'm hearing off the back of that going in is absolutely fascinating. And I think there's going to be another framework that comes out, which is about our promotions and how can people get promoted within Synectics, and what, you know, we've got a couple of values. And again, we don't, you know, a lot of this we've pilfered and we've adapted. We have none of this is, you know, this is other people's, like, you know, property basically that we've just edited and made ours. So, you know, that's what one of my key messages for today is that all this is out there. Don't feel you have to reinvent the wheel. Google is probably one of your best friends. And so speaking to people, finding out from people what they do, how they do it, etc. So yeah, so that's now obviously when you're going from more policies to frameworks, and if you go back to that one-page strategic plan, you know, a lot of the stuff in that stimulate progress is all about change. And obviously we've done a lot of change with changing, with going from policies to frameworks and different things that we've done. And it was about 6 months after I was HR director, I went off to London to a CIPD conference, and there was an amazing 2-day conference on behavioural science. And day 2 was about, what was day 2? Day 2 was a lady who did a workshop with us. And it was a lady called Hilary Scarlett. And she's written a book, and amazingly all about neuroscience for organizational change. And she was absolutely fascinating, got us up, got us moving, absolutely brilliant. And actually she does a far better job of explaining her sort of theories and everything to you than I could. And luckily for me, she's done a couple of YouTube videos of which I'm going to show you one. Oh, I didn't need to press that because I've already got it up.
Waiter's always.
Sorry. So I'm going to pass over and probably try and change my blind so I'm not as blinded right now, to Hilary Scott.
As I was writing the book, I sort of looked at develop this model of these 6 key factors. Because one of the key things about our brains is there are certain things that send us into, and at the same time there are factors that send us into a positive mindset where we're focused, we're performing, we're open to new ideas, we're more innovative. And there are 6 key areas that matter to all of us, but some matter more to some of us than others. And I think Spaces is a really useful planning tool because it can be used for how to hold a phone conversation to make sure you get change, to make sure you have employees in a more positive place. The 6 areas are, the S stands for self-esteem. So that's all about people feeling respected, feeling good about themselves, feeling they are learning and growing. That's a key one. And there's a lovely example in the book from Julianne Moore, who was the Oscar winner this year, who, when she won her Oscar, said she was really pleased to have won because Oscar winners tend to live 4 years longer than nominees, and she's been a nominee many times. And she's right. There is this thing about people who achieve tend to live longer. So the question was, how can we build that self-esteem in people so that they feel good about themselves? So that's the S, self-esteem. P is for purpose, and I think that's all about, we all have a need to feel that what we're doing at work is useful, that people are benefiting from it, that there are people out there who benefit from the work we're doing. A is for autonomy. It's all about having some sense of control. A little bit of control is really important to us, some perception of control. C is for certainty, so it's all about our need to have some kind of sense of certainty. If we don't have it, we're hugely distracted at work. E is for equity, that sense that we want to feel we've got an equal chance, we're going to be treated fairly at work, especially if we're going through change. There's going to be change in the organisation, we want to have a fair crack at the jobs that are there. And S is about social connection, a really important one, I think. I think that's one we've hugely underestimated in organisations. Work, our need to feel that we're part of somebody's in-group, that we belong, that our manager or leader takes an interest in us. And there's really interesting research around that if we've got it, the impact on our ability to think, but if we haven't got it, if we feel rejected in some way, has a very serious impact on our ability to think and make decisions.
So, obviously, hopefully you've spotted spaces and what it stands for. And there was a couple of things when we were there that she said that was just really, really made me think. So she was talking, I remember on the certainty one, she was saying that everybody needs certainty. And what our brains do is if we don't get certainty, then we make it up because we have to have certainty. So that certainty isn't an option, we have to have it. So she was saying, if you're going through, and she used the example at the time of, say, you're buying a new building and, or you're going to a merger or whatever it is. And she was saying that when you're doing your communications on it, one of the things to do is, because people crave this certainty, is to tell them when the next update will be. Even if the next update, so say it's like, right, we've given this whole big, everybody know, here's the big corporate communications. We will communicate again with you next Friday. And even if that update is, there is no update, and the next time you'll hear from us is now going to be in 2 weeks' time because of surveys or whatever it is, that's great, because people will, when they start to think, they're not going, they'll go, oh, it's okay. If they start to panic, it's okay, we're going to find out next Friday. We'll find out something, or if not, we'll hear before. And I found that's really stuck with me over the last sort of 5 years. When every time we're doing communications within the office, we do a lot of this. I did a whole, during like near the end of the first lockdown, actually, I sat in my room and did all of this to kind of train the staff on it, just recorded it. But I equated it to lockdown, which was really interesting. The other one that I just wanted to, two of the ones I wanted to sort of pull out. One was social connection, and just saying, I think that the lockdowns in particular showed, I don't think people realize just we are social beings. We need to be around people, not all the time, but for good, we need to have that kind of thing. And I think that was a really big thing that came out of the lockdowns that people didn't necessarily realize. And my other one, just reading on this, is equity. And she really went through the difference between equality and equity. And again, when something just lands with you and you go, oh my God, I get it now. And yeah, so this image I just found really, really helpful on it. And again, for a lot of people, it was, when you're going through organizational change, people tend to, I think, get a little bit confused between the two. And it's like, well, they're doing this and therefore I should. In the same way, that's a very policy sort of mindset. It's black and white, everybody treated exactly the same. Whereas, one of our values is about caring, and we recognize everyone, we recognize everyone has sticky outfits. That's what my mum does, and we always do this whenever we do it. I can't not say that and not do it. And so actually that's where the equity comes in, because not everybody needs exactly the same. Depends on their circumstance, depends on what they're going through. Yeah, we had a bereavement policy, and I remember this years ago now, but my mum finding out that she was chatting to a bloke and he'd lost his mother-in-law. Now at the time, bizarrely, in-laws I think weren't included in our policy. And but we knew about this individual that this bloke was really close with his in-laws, and secondly that he'd lost his parents, quite a long time before. So actually we gave that discretion and said, no, that's a really traumatic thing for you, you need to go do it. Now if you're in the rigid thing of a policy, that's going against your policy. Whereas in every single one of our policies, we always have with discretion. The management deserve the right to discretion. And depend what's going on for them. It makes it a little bit harder. Some people don't like it because it's not as black and white and they prefer that, which at that point we normally say, well, there are really big organizations who do really, black and white policies really well. This is the type of culture, this is all helping towards our culture and what we do. And that was my thing. They do, there's loads of words underneath each of the definitions of them. And she has a great model that you can use, and taking what can you, when you're planning something, when you're going through change, this is neuroscience helping you. What can you do while you're going through this particular change to help people stay in that reward state, that toward one, rather than the threat one, which I showed a couple of slides ago. So when we've introduced a new intranet, we used it and we went through every single box, and it changed how we did some things. So when we've put our frameworks in place, we have to help people with their autonomy. We might come up with the initial draft, but as they're going through it, we have revision dates, and to then give them the certainty. So if we've done it now, so people have probably got until the end of September to give their feedback to us so that we know, and then a new revision of that document will probably come out in November, say. So again, we found this really helpful with helping people feel that they've got that autonomy, and they've got that ability to influence, and they've also got their certainty. So you can do one thing which covers a couple of bits off. It was really fascinating, but made us think differently, definitely. And yeah, really useful. And I was trying to work out what my thread was to go on to this one now, and I came up with it and I've completely forgotten. So I'll just go with it. So when you're talking about change, and obviously we've had a lot of change over the last 2 years, and we are now at the point where we've done our 4Ws policy, but one of our massive thinking phases, I would say, that we're in right now, is obviously what does the use of the office have in quarter 4 of 2021 going into 2022, and really looking at things of what do we need to do, what do we need to be aware of. So we've got the spaces model, which helps us when we're going through those changes. But what we do is we do a lot of research, a lot of reading, as you've sort of seen, videos, whatever it might be. And one of our staff came across this, which is also with Jacob Morgan, and he does have a book. And I found it really, I haven't read the whole book, if I'm really brutally honest with you. Somebody within my team has, though, which is really helpful. But I know the basics, I know the essence of what they're trying to do, and that helps when we're having the conversations. So what his focus was to look at going from doing some research on employee engagement. And what he discovered is that the thing that makes, again, looking at different organizations and what makes a really successful organization, and it was actually the organizations who didn't just look at the engagement of the staff, but they looked at the experience that a member of staff would have. Because what his view was, it was a lot more holistic, whereas the engagement piece can sometimes just be about communication. whereas engagement is taking the whole piece on. I mean, amazingly, the people in the room at Synectics are now finding probably some of our little secrets as to how we come up with some of the stuff that we do, which we do try and share. But this one's quite, these two ones that I'm sharing are really new to us. So this is why I'm not quite as fluent in it yet. But during Jacob Morgan, when he was doing his research, he came up with a scorecard of 17 factors, and he grouped them into 3 different domains. And actually on the equation, I'm going to go backwards just to probably really make some people feel uncomfortable that I'm not doing it from the beginning. But the first one that in this article I came across that you were talking about was physical space. So when people design spaces, one of the things he says is that a lot of people forget that their spaces need to reflect their core values. And he was saying that the physical space can be quite overlooked for different things. So we are going through a massive phase now, recognizing that we're probably not going to have everybody of our staff in the office at the same time with our 4 Ws policy. So what do we need the space to be now? We know from research, which is another one I'm going to come on to in a minute, we know from that kind of research that people don't want to just come into the office and basically be on Teams calls all day because they could do that from home. So the office has to provide something different. There's got to be a purpose to that office and to what they're doing. And it needs that flexibility. So we're looking at things like pods right now. We're looking at our creative spaces, maybe having more of them, so that the office becomes a really big collaboration kind of zone. But there are spaces for people, if they prefer to be in the office, they've got their quiet zones as well. So loads of different thinking, which we're finding really exciting. And also we're doing quite a lot of work outside the building as well, and trying to, for me, especially like when the weather's like this, I want to be outside and work. We have laptops, we don't have to be chained to the desk. They work without being on, well, most of them work without being on power the whole time. That's why we have them. So actually going and finding those spaces and making it inviting. And for us, it also means looking at where they are, their own physical spaces in their houses as well, and making our management team are supporting them, making sure that they're all okay from a working from home perspective as well. So then we'll go backwards. We'll go to the middle one. We'll go to technology next. So what I found really fascinating with what he was saying on technology is that from his research, because we now use a lot of technology at home, we judge the technology at work. And for a lot of organizations, their technology at work is clunky and not efficient enough. And that can really put people off doing that. So anything that increases complexity is judged negatively. So he was talking that the answer to that is to involve users in the choice of technology, and not just dropping new tools all the time, but spending time getting the right ones. But we're also looking at it again from where the world's going to, what technology do we need to have in our meeting room so that hybrid meetings can happen, because it's going to be the way of the world, isn't it? Like that we're not, sometimes we might have a lot of people in the room and maybe there are some people be on Zoom. What technology is coming out that can help facilitate that? Because at the minute, even if a load of us are in the office and we're doing a meeting online, especially if I've done ones with clients, we're all dotted around the office. We're all in the same, the Synectics lot are in the same blooming building, but we're in different rooms. And sometimes we've now worked out if we go in the same room, but you both have your camera on, but one of you's muted and not got your sound on, then you can do it. And it's like, right, what else do we need to do? What technology advances are there coming out that will help us with that? And then culture. So what he was saying is that for a lot of people, the physical space and the technology side are simply enough for people to understand, because you can touch them, you can see them, and they make quite logical sense. But the culture environment is much more intangible. Oh, sorry, that's me going off on one. I'm looking at notes on my screen. So this is what he was saying about culture. but you feel it on an emotional level. So for some people, it's that thrill of a Monday morning. How do you feel on a Monday morning? Have you got that, yes, it's Monday, let's crack on, I'm really excited about what I'm doing? Or is it that pit in the stomach feeling that you just don't want to go in? And that is your culture. That's partly what you've been, your organization's got that culture, and how can you help, hopefully, again, move people towards that reward towards state rather than the threat one. So again, this is where you can merge lots of different things about how they work. He identified 2 key things from a culture perspective. One is teamwork, and how good your teamwork is will depend on probably how successful you are, and how, especially on a cultural perspective, and your purpose. Why do people get up in the morning and come and do what they do? And showing people that their hard work has a huge impact. That's where we find the one-page strategic plan really helpful as well, but we try and find other ways to keep getting those messages to our staff of the impact that the amazing work that they do has. I'm just going to read 2 things out that I really liked from the book. One is, the challenge we have to overcome today is how to shift our relationship with work from feeling like a physical purchase where satisfaction starts to decline over time, to an investment in an experience where our satisfaction increases over time. I like this one. Ask yourself, if I could bottle up what it's like to work at my organization and turn it into a pill form right now, would I swallow it? If the answer is no, then ask your colleagues the same question. If they feel the same as you, speak up and instigate a requisite change. If you're a leader or an owner of an organization and you ask that and you don't like it, then you're definitely in a much more opinion to be able to do that. Go ask your colleagues, go find out. I really like that, but I love this whole thing of more frameworks and people and employees' experience. That's definitely where we're at right now. And I'm not going to spend too long on this one, because a lot of it, hopefully you're seeing there's quite a big theme sort of coming through, and lots of things tend to be variations on the theme, and I am conscious of the time too. So we've done some research, and one of the articles that we came up with was from an organisation called Gallup, and I really quite like their articles that they do. But they had an article called "Going Back to Work in the Office, It Has to Be Worth It." And I've mentioned a couple of things from the article actually as I've been going through, but he was saying that there are 4 main things that people need to look at from an office perspective when they're coming back. One of the key things about offices is connection. People, when we went to work from home, we could see that they could be productive. The thing I miss the most, and I used to call it, it's the tea talk conversations. It was the accidental conversations that you'd see somebody go, hi, I'm not going to put a 15-minute, 10-minute, 5-minute meeting in a diary to have an accidental conversation. It just didn't happen. You know, I was so gutted. There were so many people who were pregnant from our staff, and I didn't get to have the umpteenth time. I would normally bump into them in the toilet because they're on their, 20th time of the day being in there, because Baba's probably squeezing, but you'd see them, and then you'd have the conversation. How are you doing? Where are you up to? Are you concerned about the birth? You don't schedule those kind of ones in. So again, massive thing on connection. Collaboration. Again, some of those incidental conversations is the things you overhear, isn't it? Oh, I just heard you talk about that. Now I've got something on that might be able to help. Lots of different ways, but collaboration was absolutely key from an office perspective. So this is what we're using to kind of base our office designs on. Creativity. I just think I'm so much more creative. I bounce ideas off people. That's where you get some of those sparks. And massively, it's a cultural thing. It's how we do things. If my mum and dad had their way, they would have everybody back in the office every single day, because that's how. That's probably slightly a generational thing as well, but that's what they want. That's where our culture. Been so well known for our culture. It's been amazing. Lockdown hit. we had to work really hard. It was really hard to recognize that a lot of our culture had been designed on the basis that everybody was in the office. And suddenly, what do you do when your culture, you can't do what you would normally do? And then you're also going through a global pandemic, and you've also got lots of other things going on in your head. So it was a real shocker, I think, really for me, that we had to think differently about how we do culture. That's led to different research, different people. It's been, an incredible journey, and one that I'm so proud that we're still on. We're still trying to figure it out. We're not getting everything right by any stretch of the imagination, but we are massively trying and flexing and trying to use all of these frameworks and tools from all of these influencers to help us, and know that we're not the only ones that have got the answer, and that we've got to flex and move. So I have done a lot of talking very quickly at you. You'll be pleased to know that that is the end of all of my talking, but I'm quite happy to take, this is one of my favourite images, by the way. Just thought I'd share that one. Happy to take any questions. And there is also this wonderful yellow QR code, which I did remember to put in my presentation, which I was dead pleased with, which just has a little feedback form. So if you get your phones out and do that, then I know the chamber would be extremely grateful to hear. Please don't tell me, basically, though, what you say. That would be great as well. But yeah, has anybody got any questions for me? Mike, I can see you on the screen.
When we were in lockdown, Kate,
yes,
obviously you were thinking, ooh, what's going to happen when we come out of lockdown? And a lot of the world said, I'm never going to go back to the office again. So you probably had a percentage of what amount of time people might be in the office when you were looking forward. Now people are actually starting to come back. Has that number gone up or gone down because actually people are coming back and thinking, oh, I quite like this. I'd forgotten what it was like.
Yeah, I heard I heard lots of different things during the lockdown. So I remember speaking to one of our lovely ladies, Sadie, and I think I was over Zoom with her, and I remember her saying, Kate, I am an introvert and I loved the first 6 weeks of this. She's like, genuinely, I know everybody else was struggling, but I absolutely loved it. She said, now it's really hitting me. Now I'm struggling. Now I'm realizing I don't want to be around people all the time. That's not what I want, but I'm really missing people. I'm really missing having these incidental conversations. And it's really funny. She lives in like Shrewsbury Way and stuff. So she's got quite a jaunt to get to us. And she's one of the people that's in the office quite a bit now. She's in at least 2 days a week. And she's even been quite honest with me and said, I was really surprised that I've chosen to come in like a couple of days a week now. But again, people I think have seen the benefit. We can definitely see the way we structured our building. It's definitely more the front of the building where we see a lot more people. In the back of the building tends to be the more technical people. So we do find that they are at home a lot. But what's really interesting is that when there seems to be such a fear and anxiety for people, and I have to say, after that first lockdown, my first day of coming back into the office, I was I could feel it. I could feel the anxious, I could feel the nervousness. And then everybody said, when you walk through the door and then you kind of got to your desk and you'd sat down and you suddenly go, oh, it's not as bad. It's not as bad as it's never ever as bad as what people are. So we've been really trying to, in a very gentle, give people the options to but we're noticing the people who tend to get over that barrier, that change barrier, go through that, realize it's not as bad, and then they're in a lot more. As soon as you get over that, you'll see them quite regularly then. The people who haven't been in since, for quite a long, some of our staff haven't been in for 18 months now, and that's, and you get loads of people, oh, it's fine, just come on in. And they forget that they had to go through that psychological thing as well. But yeah, it's been, we tend to find our food, typically with us, it's food, isn't it? Does influence what days. So Wednesdays definitely gets more people because it's a roast day. than they probably would have done. Tuesdays and Thursdays tend to be our busiest days. When I say busy, I mean we're at like a third of our capacity. It's, you know, not even a third probably of our capacity, but yeah, they are now classified as busy days. You drive in, you're like, oh, the car park's a lot busier. I don't get my, because all of us were kind of getting our normal spots of the people who are in most of the days. And now, no, some days you'll find it and you're, oh, this is exciting. So yeah, I do find that once people are in, they do tend to come in a bit more.
Cool.
Anything else from anybody else? Well, I'm about, if you haven't got my contact details, you can get hold of the chamber and the chamber can pass you anything. If you want any of the documents that I've kind of gone through today, then again, quite happy to share, because again, we plagiarized them completely. So I do not claim any, whatever the word.
Good job you're not admitting to plagiarism while you're being recorded.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? So yeah.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for the fantastic webinar. As Kate kindly said, if you do want to leave any feedback, it's just on the barcode on the screen. It's simply just getting your camera, scanning it, and it'll take you to the link, the page to just fill out about, I think it's around 5 questions. But thank you everyone for attending today, and be sure to check out the rest of the Business Festival. We've got a lot more webinars going on for the rest of the week. But thank you for attending, everyone.